Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today from McFarlane Toys in their DC Multiverse line, we are featuring the Red Hood, as he appears in the video game Batman Arkham Knight. Alright, so today is November 1st, Tuesday, it's 2022. I received this figure earlier in the evening from Amazon.com. I'm not sure how thorough of a review this is going to be. At the very least, I kind of want to unbox this and take it out just so I can have this video ready for upload in the morning. So we're going to check this out. Alright, so if you're familiar with the Arkham Knight video game, you know this guy needs no introduction. This version of the character has seen, I think, a couple of different action figures already. I know that Mattel made a Arkham Knight Red Hood figure, but that was in their smaller, like 4-inch scale. There's even a Red Label version of this figure, and the Red Label version, it's completely, I think, in all red, and I can't remember if that's a Target exclusive or a Walmart exclusive, or if it's not an exclusive at all. I always get kind of confused with the Red Label stuff. But either way, we're going to check this out. This looks like it's a great follow-up to the previously released Arkham Knight figure. And if you haven't checked out that review, go check it out. I think that figure was great and a little bit underrated. Red Hood's an incredibly popular character, especially with the recent release of the new Gotham Knights video game. You know, even though that game is getting kind of mixed reviews right now, I don't think that's going to do anything to hurt the popularity of the character. If anything, you know, I think the character's popularity is just always going to continue to increase. You know, I'm always surprised at how many Red Hood action figures there are. On the back of the box, we have character artwork from the video game. And as you can see, the action figure does a pretty decent job of recreating the look. Although I do think the paint job could be a little bit better on this. You know, after reviewing the McFarlane Jason Momoa Aquaman action figure, which, you know, for one has a terrible head sculpt, but the paint application on that figure is just amazing. You know, for me, it's kind of spoiled me because now I kind of expect every figure to be just as good as that, even though that figure came out, like, you know, over a year ago. But I am excited to check this out, so let's take a look at this. And I apologize in advance. I'm kind of like messy right now. I spent the last 2 days just doing a lot of painting, so all my clothes are covered in paint. My fingers are covered in paint. So okay, so the really big omission with this action figure, like 99% of most Red Hood figures, is the fact that this guy does not come with any weapons or firearms. And, you know, with the DC figures coming out from McFarlane, you know, I think DC kind of mandated, you know, that they can't release action figures with guns. And the workaround that is that McFarlane, they kind of released that Spawn weapon pack. So if you feel the need to give this guy, you know, his trademark pistols, which he really does need, you can either pick up that McFarlane Spawn weapon pack, or if you have a bunch of like Marvel Legends figures or other figures that are like within the 6-inch or 7-inch scale, you know, you could probably loan those weapons to this guy. Because this guy, even though he doesn't come with pistols, he does come with 2 extra hands. And these hands are actually trigger fingers. So these hands here are meant to hold weapons. It's almost like a bad joke that this guy comes with these, like, flame effects. You know, it's been a while since I've played the game, and I don't remember or even understand why he comes with, I don't know, these weird flame effects. It's a very poor substitute for pistols. Alright, so we have the Red Hood as he appears in the video game Arkham Knight. So, if I remember correctly, I want to say that this version of the character isn't featured in the stock game. I believe he's featured in like a standalone content on DLC. It's a very, very interesting take on the Red Hood. Much like a lot of the characters portrayed in the Arkham video games, you know, they're kind of stylized. They're kind of borderline on what I like to call hyper realistic. Like to kind of take the superheroes and supervillains from the Batman world in the Arkham games, and they kind of give them a little bit more real world sensibilities in terms of their design aesthetic. And if I remember correctly, I think Rocksteady Studios, who are the developers of the game, I think they're based out of France. So I think, you know, I think in terms of the fashion sense, it's kind of sleek, it's kind of cool. So it's a very unique take on the character, especially compared to some of the previous versions of the Red Hood that we've gotten before. You know, not only with McFarlane, but also counting like Mattel and DC Direct and DC Collectibles. You know, if you're a fan of the video game, I think this is definitely worth the purchase. You know, it kind of rounds out your Batman family of characters. And it's also a great follow-up to, like I said, the Arkham Knight action figure. You know, I think you can't really have that figure and not have this one. I think this really kind of complements, you know, the totality of the video game. So right now, the sculpting here, it's pretty well done. The hood's cool. My only complaint with the hood is that the material is a little bit thick. You know, especially when you look at the edges of the hood, it just looks kind of like chunky. Also, the hood's kind of shrouded over his head a little bit too much. So if you want to like pose the head, it's kind of a nuisance. You can't really move the head around without this getting in the way. You know, one option is if you're like, you know, if you want to shell out the money, I guess you could buy a second copy of this figure and take an X-Acto knife and carefully cut the hood off. And so you have the head exposed. But that's kind of like an extreme option. You know, I wouldn't really necessarily recommend that unless, you know, you want to make that investment. But, you know, I'd shy away from doing that if you only have the one copy of the figure. The coat's really well done. He has his emblem on his chest and also on the front. Even though the sculpting is really well done, I kind of feel a little bit shortchanged on the paint application. You know, it feels like he has more paint on him than the average McFarlane figure, but I really feel like this figure could benefit from like a wash, just to like kind of not only dirty up the jacket, but to really emphasize and bring out all the details and the texture and whatnot. Because I kind of feel like the contrast between the white and the black is a little too stark and a little bit too extreme. I kind of feel like, you know, it should blend in a little bit better with each other. Really well done on the details. You have his cartridges. And so this is where it kind of pains me. Like, he doesn't have, he doesn't actually come with pistols, yet he has the cartridges for his weapons on his thighs. I like the design on the shin guards and the knee pads here, how it's kind of just like one solid piece of armor. That's kind of cool. Yeah, it's a really solid figure. I like this a lot. It's just unfortunate that, you know, he doesn't come with any weapons. But it's nice that they, you know, at least gave us the option of swapping out his hands. So, you know, he does come with an extra pair of hands that allow for, like, holding guns and whatnot. And the belt is pretty cool here. I dig that a lot. It kind of reminds me of Han Solo's belt a little bit. But, man, I kind of feel like, even though there's a lot of paint on him, I kind of feel like they could have done more to bring out the details on his shirt. You know, there's all these buttons, and the wrinkles are really well done. And let me grab the box art real quick. And then when you look at the box art, it does a really good job of mimicking the actual video game character. But I don't know, there's something about this, it just feels like it's missing something. I don't know, in terms of the paint application. But it's a pretty spot on, not like a near carbon copy of the model from the video game. Although the color choices here seem a little bit different than this one. And if you notice on the, I'm not sure if the actual in-game model of the video game is like this, but not only is his leather jacket black, but there's also like a red wash over parts of it. Yeah, it's a really cool figure. In terms of the articulation, let's examine that. His head will rotate, but unfortunately, like I said, this hood just kind of gets in the way. And if you want to take the jacket off, the minute you try to lift it up, you realize that it's actually glued onto the chest. You see, it's kind of plugged in. So, removing the coat isn't necessarily an option unless you force it out, and you will ruin the body if you do so, since it's glued and pegged in. But, yeah, I kind of wish I could, get this head exposed a little bit better. Yeah, so for me, that's kind of like a big thing, the hood. It would have been nice if they gave us a different option for this. But, his arms rotate, they go out. There's a cut. I think there's a cut at the bicep. Mine's kind of, one joint feels kind of stuck here. It's a little bit gummy. I don't want to force it. Same with the other one. Like my attitude, if you have a stuck joint, don't force it. You might end up just tearing it or wrecking it. So I'll probably figure out a way to fix this later. But my joints on the bicep just feel kind of tight. Double pinned elbows. Articulated wrists, very stock. Cut beneath the chest line, so you could do all sorts of wacky poses. He could crunch forward like that. He could arch back. The coat, even though it's kind of like it's not too thick of a material, but it does bend a little. So it does provide some flex from the arch back, but then I think it kind of resets his body a little bit forward. His legs kick up about there. He splits out, almost full splits. Double pinned knees. Ankle articulation and toe articulation. So it's kind of, I don't know, it just bothers me that he doesn't come with pistols, but there are options, and as much as I want to complain about it, I do have a parts bin filled with dozens of weapons from other toy lines that I could easily loan out to this guy. But it's a solid figure overall. If I had to rate this guy on a scale of 1 to 10, my first impression is an 8. It's great, but it's not perfect. If you're a fan of the video game, this is definitely worth a purchase. If you're not a fan of the video game, I think there are better options if you want something a little bit more iconic. For example, this isn't iconic, but this is like one of the more recent releases of the Red Hood. So this is Gotham Knight's Red Hood. I like this figure a lot. I reviewed it months ago when it first came out. I think my only gripe with this figure is that besides not having trigger fingers, is that he's a little bit too bulky and beefed up. But this is how he actually appears in the video game. But when I think of Jason Todd, I kind of picture him more being the rebel of the Batman family. And for me, I kind of always envisioned him as being a little bit more punk rock and a little bit on the waifish, slimmer side. This guy's kind of bulked out like a WWE wrestler. And this is kind of more along the lines of modern Red Hood. This is the new 52 version. This figure, it could be a little bit pricey on the secondary market. I haven't looked up prices recently, but I remember, back in the day, this figure could go anywhere for $60 to $80. And this figure has actually seen a couple of different releases. I think this is the only way you could get the figure with the guns, I think. There was a gold label version of this figure that came without the mask, and it came with like 2 flaming swords. And then there was another version of this figure that came in a 2-pack with Nightwing. And I think that Nightwing had the new 52 color scheme with the black and the red, I think. And I can't remember if that version had pistols also. But yeah, there's actually like 3 different versions of this figure. So in terms of the Red Hood, you do have options. You know, I think this one looks pretty cool. But like I said, this isn't necessarily, I think, what most people think of when they think of the Red Hood. I think a lot of people kind of think of this guy right here. But that might change, especially like with the popularity of like the new video game. You know, even though the video game is getting kind of getting mixed reviews, it seems like everyone's playing this right now. So, you know, this might be the kind of Red Hood that gets adopted in terms of like, you know, pop culture for the next, you know, year or two. I think most people might associate Red Hood with this guy as opposed to this one. If I had to choose between these 3, I'm a little bit old-fashioned. I'd probably pick this guy. But this isn't my favorite Red Hood action figure. My favorite Red Hood action figure was actually released by DC Direct, DC Collectibles. And it's their version of the new 52 Red Hood. I really want to do a review on that video. I'm getting tongue-tied. I really want to do a review on that action figure in the near future because I think it's really worth checking out. But yeah, there's options. You know, Red Hood's surprisingly, you know, we've gotten a lot of figures for this character already, which is nice. So yeah, I think this is worth the purchase. You know, go out there, you know, grab it. I'm not sure how available it is right now at like brick and mortar retail outlets. You know, for me, I picked this up on Amazon. I want to say it was maybe like, I'm not sure if it was $19. I can't remember if they upped the price on McFarlane figures. But I think this figure might run anywhere between $19 to $24, you know, depending, you know, where you get it. All right, so let's wrap this one up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you are new to my channel, welcome. If you're a returning viewer subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. All right, later.